So, you know that feeling, right? It's like 2 in the morning, you're on the couch, just scrolling, completely checked out.
No real reason to be awake, nothing pressing.
Exactly. You're just kind of stuck,
Yeah.
apathetic, lost, maybe. Our source today, it really paints this picture, calls it an inner crisis of hope.
Oh, yeah, that inertia. Where, getting up just feels way harder than staying put, staring at that screen. You feel disconnected, unsure what you even want. Yeah, it's vulnerable.
And that's the moment, isn't it, right
Yeah.
there, when you're searching for, well, for anything really, to just break that spell. So what happens when that deep human need for hope bumps up against something? Well, maybe something a little less genuine.
That's where we're diving in today. We're looking at Mark Manson's book, Everything is Fucked, Chapter 4 specifically. And it's got this killer title, well, 2 titles, really.
Right. How to make all your dreams come true, but then also how to start your own religion.
Instantly gets you thinking, doesn't it?
Totally. So our mission today is basically to unpack this chapter. It's got this cynical, almost satirical take on how belief systems get built, why we get drawn in, and, what the leaders get out of it.
Yeah, we're going step by step through Manson's sort of dark how-to guide. Not, obviously, to give anyone ideas.
Definitely not.
But because this mirror he holds up, it reflects some really fundamental stuff about, like, human psychology and how groups work.
It's blunt, right?
Yeah.
It explores why we follow what we're looking for and how that search can sometimes be exploited. Manson uses his usual style, just lays bare the mechanics of hope and getting validation.
Okay, so let's start where he starts. With that scene he paints, capturing that late-night vulnerability. The infomercial.
Yes, the infomercial.
Right. He describes this like whirlwind on screen, loud, cheesy, but then this person, calm, making eye contact, feels like they're talking just to you.
And they hit you with it. What if I told you I could solve all your problems, make all your dreams come true, and your brain, your thinking brain, even if it's foggy, is kind of like, yeah, okay, buddy, you don't know me.
But then comes the hook.
I know how you feel.
Exactly. I, too, once felt lost, alone, isolated, hopeless, wondering what this invisible force is standing between me and my dreams.
And that's where it connects, right?
Yeah.
Because, like the source points out, those feelings, powerlessness, guilt, suffering, that ache, they aren't actually unique to you sitting there.
No, they're, in Manson's words, a fact of the human condition.
But when you're deep in it, you feel so alone, don't you? You forget it's universal. So when this person on screen seems to describe your pain with this uncanny knowledge, it feels huge, like they're peering into your soul.
It feels like magic, almost. And your feeling brain, which is just desperate for any hope, any escape from that couch paralysis, it just grabs on.
The source says the idea they pitch might even be so batshit crazy that it just might work.
And that's kind of why it works, isn't it? It bypasses the thinking brain because it's so out there. But the real magic is that emotional connection. That feeling, they see your secret pain, it just drops your defenses.
They were just as fucked as you, they might say, and found my way out. Come with me. It's the oldest pitch, really, updated.
And suddenly you're reaching for the phone or clicking the link because, hey, truth and salvation and everlasting happiness, it's all yours.
Wow. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like,
Right.
Beyond actual infomercials, have you ever, when you were feeling really low, encountered a message, maybe a book, a speaker, something online that just nailed it?
Oh, for sure. That moment, it feels like it articulated something you couldn't quite put your finger on yourself. It's powerful stuff.
It really is. And that's the foundation, right? That moment of vulnerability, that perceived connection. And from there, Manson takes us into the really provocative part, the satirical guide on how to start your own religion.
Yeah, it's framed like this manual for the aspiring guru type, someone looking for unconditional adoration, financial gifts, maybe social media likes.
Or, money, fame, political power, or blood orgies, as he puts it.
Classy. But yeah, the dark humor, the cynicism, it cuts through all the nice language about belief and gets to what the source argues is the core truth. Religions, defined really broadly here, are basically about building hope together as a community.
Right. They help people feel important. They give that mutual validation. And they kind of shield us from what Manson calls the uncomfortable truth. The idea that maybe existence is just chaotic or meaningless.
Exactly. And when people who feel lost find others who feel the same, and they latch on to a shared value or idea, that hope just amplifies. It's contagious.
Hope goes viral.
Yeah.
And that social validation, being part of a group that gets it, the source says it basically hijacks their thinking brains.
Letting the feeling brains just run wild. which, feels amazing individually, that belonging, being understood. But the danger, he points out, is that when big groups operate just from that feeling brain, well, they can do impulsive, irrational, sometimes even murderous, angry things. It's that potent mix, isn't it? Deep personal need meeting collective emotion.
Okay, so step one in this twisted guide. Identify the hopeless. Sell hope to the hopeless.
Yeah, the source is super direct about this. You find people when they're most vulnerable, when life feels like it's at their worst. Their old values aren't working. They're grasping in the dark for new values.
It's like when one religion, meaning, one belief system, one way of making sense of life collapses, it leaves this void.
And that void is the opportunity for the next thing to step in.
He uses the LaRouche youth movement as an example, seeing them on college campuses, calling it an ideological religion, targeting, specifically, disaffected and agitated college students, often young men, feeling scared and angry.
And the core message, so potent for that group, it's not your fault.
Oof.
It's not you, it's the system. This big, grand, vague entity is causing all your problems.
Which, let's be real, hits a nerve for a lot of young adults.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're dealing with huge changes, new responsibilities, trying to figure out your values with overwhelming options, feeling frustrated, trying to find your tribe.
Totally. It's easy to feel lost, and maybe even easier to blame something external when you're struggling just to, get out of bed, let alone fix the world.
So LaRouche tapped right into that, gave them this complicated political story explaining why they felt that way, gave them a sense of power, here's how to fight the system, and crucially, a community, a place to belong, gave them hope.
Manson even shares a story about arguing with them, seeing their awful "America deserved it" signs after 9/11 and being told he had blood on his hands for just participating in the system.
Wow.
And he realized then these weren't arguments about facts. They were about feelings and values. And those things, he writes, you cannot change them through reason, only through experience.
Which makes his comeback with the Carl Sagan quote, "I think your mind is so open your brain fell out."
Yeah.
Kind of funny, but it highlights the point, right? Logic often just bounces off deeply held values.
Yeah. The bigger point is hopelessness makes you receptive. Like he says, starving people will believe anything if it will keep them fed. He mentions historical figures too. Jim Jones, Jesus, Buddha, Moses targeting the poor, the downtrodden.
Offering a kingdom of heaven or liberation, it was an open fuck you to the corrupt elites of their time. Super appealing when you feel like you have nothing left to lose.
And today, social media makes finding the isolated, the desperate, way easier. You can just post extreme and crazy shit, and the algorithms do the work.
But just getting clicks isn't enough, right? To build a following, you need more. You need a message, some kind of vision, even if it's only semi-coherent.
Yeah.
Something that makes people feel part of a greater movement on the winning side of history. You got to give them actual faith.
Which leads perfectly into step 2. Choose your faith.
Okay, so the source is pretty emphatic here. Everyone, absolutely everyone, has faith in something. You can't have hope without it.
Right. Even if you're totally non-religious, even if you champion science,
Right.
you still have faith, right? Faith that the future will follow patterns from the past, faith in the scientific method, faith in evidence itself. Faith, in this broad sense, is just inevitable.
Yeah, he kind of pushes back on the idea of a truly faithless atheist.
Yeah.
Even believing nothing matters is still a faith position, faith that nothing is inherently more valuable than anything else. So the question isn't if you have faith.
It's faith in what?
Exactly. And that what is your God value? It's the ultimate thing for your feeling brain, the lens you see everything else through. It gives examples like money, romantic love, a specific leader like Jesus or Muhammad.
Or even yourself, like narcissism. Or another person, codependence. He notes that codependents are often drawn to narcissists in this sick and fucked up way.
This God value, it's the core belief that convinces you this one thing is the key to the best future. And then you organize your whole life, other values, activities, friends, communities around supporting it.
And he makes this really crucial point about evidence versus values. Evidence, that's for the thinking brain.
Yeah.
Values, that's the feeling brain.
And values are subjective, right? You can't, prove them with data. People don't usually form values because of evidence. They interpret the meaning of evidence through their existing values.
Like his meteorite example. A meteorite hits town. Same event. Totally different interpretations based on your God value.
Yeah. Religious person sees divine wrath. Atheist sees random chance, which still requires faith in scientific principles, he notes. He just thinks party time. Capitalist sees a chance to invest in asteroid defense. Same rock, wildly different meanings.
Unless he kind of foreshadows evidence itself becomes your God value, which he calls science and sets up for the next chapter. But for building a religion, you need people to commit based on faith, not just facts.
Okay, so then he breaks down these value systems into three main types of religions.
First up, spiritual religions. Hope comes from the supernatural, the afterlife. High risk for the founder, potentially huge rewards. They're super resilient because, well, you can't really verify or disprove their claims easily.
Which makes followers incredibly committed, even willing to die for it. And historically, these dominated when life on Earth was pretty rough for most people, offering hope beyond the immediate struggle.
Then you have ideological religions. Hope comes from the natural world, from achieving something in this life. These are all the isms: capitalism, communism, environmentalism, nationalism, you name it.
He rates these as like normal difficulty to start. And theoretically, you could verify their claims, but humans get in the way. We twist evidence all the time, usually because of ignorance far more than malice, he says, driven by human narcissism and the feeling brain run amok.
Yeah, they rely on shared ideas we all agree on, like money or nations. They often feel like big cultural trends, but few last for centuries. And they're easier to kickstart if you offer a reasonable-sounding explanation for why everything is fucked.
Which feels
Yeah.
pretty relevant right now, maybe. He even notes the current shifts, like traditionalist, nationalist, populist ideas gaining ground against neoliberal, globalist, feminist, environmentalist ones. It's a constant battle over which value system gets to be dominant.
And the third type, interpersonal religions. Hope comes from other people. This is the easy mode, apparently, because, well, people are everywhere.
Examples like sports fandom, political hero worship, celebrity culture. But the most powerful ones are family, and especially romantic relationships, like mini churches. He calls romantic love quasi-spiritual, that whole idea of losing yourself in someone else.
And he argues that modern life has kind of shifted our focus away from those super intense small group bonds towards these bigger ideologies, which is actually, he says cheekily, good news for anyone trying to start a mass religion, because it's easier to get large groups attached if they aren't already locked into tight personal units.
Because getting that deep emotional attachment is key, and that requires shutting down the critical thinking part.
Which brings us neatly to step 3. Preemptively invalidate all criticism or outside questioning.
Got to protect the faith.
Exactly. And the main trick is setting up these self-reinforcing us versus them divides. If you criticize us, that automatically makes you one of them. End of story.
The examples he gives are so familiar, aren't they? Support the war or you support the terrorists. God's just testing your faith with that contradictory science. Criticize feminism, you're sexist. Criticize capitalism, you're a communist. Criticize the president, traitor. Don't think Kobe was better than Jordan. You just don't get basketball.
Yeah. They're false us versus them dichotomies. They aren't designed for actual discussion. Their only job is to shut down critique and create a common enemy.
And common entities are like fuel for group identity. They create unity. You need a scapegoat, justified or not, to blame for all the pain your followers are feeling. People desperately crave enemies, he says.
Which means you have to demonize the outsiders, the non-believers. They have to be fucking evil, the cause of the downfall of everything. It simplifies the world. There are those who get it, us saving the world, and those who don't, them destroying it.
And fear amps this all up. Make your followers feel like holy warriors fighting against the darkness. Conspiracy theories fit right in here, don't they?
Perfectly. They posit these secret evil forces behind everything. Vaccines are a plot, pro-choicers are satanic, climate change is a hoax. It just reinforces the us versus them and justifies the hatred. Makes the enemy clear, shifts the blame outwards, and makes the followers feel righteous.
Okay, deep breath. Let's move to step 4. Ritual sacrifice for dummies. Manson starts this with a personal story, right? About growing up in Texas.
Yeah, where Jesus and football were the only gods that mattered. He talks about struggling with church rules, the contradictions he saw, sneaking 9-inch nail shirts under his Sunday best.
Reading Nietzsche, arguing in Sunday school until the teacher basically bribed him to shut up.
It's a great picture of someone bumping up against the established religion around him, wrestling with that uncomfortable truth, even as a kid.
And he reflects that, like, dressing up for church wasn't just about following rules. It was about showing respect for the community, for the religion. It was virtue signaling, showing you were one of the us, like how robes signify status.
Rituals, he argues, make values real. tangible. You can't just think about a value. You have to live it, experience it. And rituals, the repeated actions, special words, specific clothes, they make that experience happen. They're visual and experiential representations of what we deem important.
They also carry the group's story, like bread and wine representing sacrifice and salvation. And they connect you to the past, right? Doing the exact same thing that people 500 years ago did. It anchors your identity.
But the deep, dark core of many rituals, especially spiritual ones, is sacrifice. He mentions ancient human sacrifice, but quickly gets to the psychological why, this inherent guilt we feel just for existing.
That line hits hard. You exist. You didn't do anything to deserve existing. Boom, you have a life. And this guilt of consciousness, he says, is the cornerstone of almost every spiritual religion.
So ritual sacrifice, whether it's literal ancient killings, a life for a life, or symbolic like Jesus' death, is presented as a way to repay that cosmic debt, to ease that guilt. He even suggests most religious practices, including prayer, are mainly about alleviation of guilt. Prayer as a gratitude journal, a way to say sorry and feel forgiven.
And sacrifice shows up differently elsewhere, too. Ideological religions, service to the nation, the cause self-sacrifice for the greater good, interpersonal ones, self-sacrifice in relationships, marriage vows, loyalty, or, as Manson puts it,
wiping the piss off the floor when I miss the toilet.
Right, those small, maybe unpleasant acts that show commitment, make you feel like you deserve the love or belonging.
It's all about demonstrating commitment, proving your worth within the system you've bought into.
Okay, so you've got followers of faith and enemy rituals. Now, step 5. Promise heaven, deliver hell.
And this is where it gets pretty bleak. You promise your followers salvation, total happiness, heaven, but life happens. They inevitably fail to live up to that promise. They experience setbacks, pain, hell.
And the twist, they blame themselves. They feel guilty for not reaching the impossible goal. And that guilt makes them obedient. They'll do whatever the leader says to try and fix themselves.
The source flat out calls it a cycle of psychological abuse, but then adds, let's not allow such terms to ruin our fun. Classic Manson.
It's like his pyramid scheme analogy. People don't make money, but they see the founder with a Ferrari, so they blame themselves. I didn't try hard enough.
Right. And the seminars keep pushing. Winners never give up. Losers just don't believe it'll work for them. So you stay motivated, but lost, always blaming yourself, not the scam or the impossible promise.
And he says this cycle isn't just in scams. It's in fitness crazes, political movements, self-help. You're always told you just need to do more, try harder, be better, and then you'll get the promised reward, which never quite materializes.
Because he argues human pain is constant. It's like whack-a-mole. Solve one issue, another pops up. It's just part of being human. So any leader promising to end pain is fundamentally lying.
They either blame you for failing at the unwinnable game, or they blame some external them. If only we could get rid of them, then we'd all be happy.
Which just redirects the pain, maybe even makes it worse. It doesn't actually fix anything.
The cynical reality, according to this framework, is that leaders need followers to be perpetually dissatisfied. Happy, fulfilled people don't need saving anymore. The religion goes out of business.
No single system, religion, country, philosophy can actually solve all problems, bring total happiness, safety, equality. That internal guilt never fully goes away.
So step 5 concludes with that signature bluntness. It's all fucked. Everything is fucked. It always has been and always will be. There are no solutions, only stopgap measures, only slightly better forms of fuckedness than others.
Wow. And the advice isn't to despair, but to embrace it. Stop running from the fuckedness. This is our fucked up world, and we're the fucked up ones in it.
Which leads finally to the payoff for the guru. Step 6, profit for profit.
Yep, this is where the religion builder cashes in. Gets the power, the prestige, fulfills their wildest dreams, maybe sex slaves, maybe land, whatever it is, often by trampling on the hopes and dreams of thousands of other people.
The ultimate power, he says, is getting to decide reality itself for your followers. You define what is ethical, what is right, who is righteous.
But then, the punchline, he turns it right back on the reader, on us, on you listening. The uncomfortable truth. You're already in one.
Oof. Yeah.
We are all part of these systems, he argues. We adopt group beliefs, values. We do the rituals, make the sacrifices, draw the East for some lines. It's just part of being human. Religious beliefs and their constituent tribal behaviors are a fundamental part of our nature.
Thinking you're somehow above it because you're logical or educated? Nope. You're one of us. You still suck, basically.
Yeah, because we actually need these things, right? We need faith, values, hope, community.
Yep.
It takes an army, he says, not just to cope psychologically, but to actually achieve anything meaningful.
These value systems, expressed through stories and beliefs, religions, they attract and organize people. And then these different religions compete, like a Darwinian competition, for followers, for resources, for cultural influence. The winners become the foundation for culture.
But success itself carries a danger. The God value of a successful religion often shifts. It stops being about the original principle and starts being about just preserving the organization itself. Organizational narcissism.
And that corruption, Jesus to crusades, Marx to gulags, wedding vows to divorce lawyers, that decay weakens the religion, makes it vulnerable. And that creates the opening for new religions to rise up and challenge it. The cycle just repeats.
And then comes the final, really potent thought he leaves us with. Success, Manson claims, is actually far more precarious than failure.
Because the more you gain, the more you have to lose.
Yep.
Which makes holding on to hope harder.
And crucially, by experiencing our hopes, we lose them. When our dreams actually come true, that's when we see all the unexpected flaws and unforeseen sacrifices.
Because the only thing that could ever truly destroy a dream is to have it come true. Yeah. So looking back at this whole deep dive into Manson's very cynical guide, it's definitely uncomfortable. But it really does strip things down, doesn't it? Reveals those basic human needs: hope, community, values, belonging, and how vulnerable we are when those needs feel unmet.
It highlights how we all run on these faith-based God values, how we desperately seek hope when we feel hopeless, how easily we fall into us, versus them thinking how rituals make things feel real and help us deal with guilt.
And that promise is ending pain. Often just a way to keep people hooked, feeling inadequate, serving the system or the leader, not themselves.
Ultimately, yeah, the argument is that these tribal, belief-driven ways of being are just baked into us. We're all playing the game, whether we consciously choose our religion or just kind of fall into one.
And that final thought,
Wow.
that achieving the very thing you've been striving for might be the thing that exposes its flaws, reveals the costs, and maybe even kills the hope that fueled you in the first place.
It definitely leaves you thinking, doesn't it? About your own beliefs, the groups you belong to, the faith you operate on, and how you navigate that constant search for hope in a world that, from this perspective at least, is just fundamentally, well, fucked.